going to be talking about today is this one. And it goes like this. When you ride in a boat and watch the shore, you might assume that the shore is moving. But when you keep your eyes closely on the boat, you see that the boat moves. Similarly, if you examine myriad things with a confused body and mind, you may suppose that your mind and nature are permanent. When you practice intimately and return to where you are, it will be clear that nothing at all has unchanging self. So as I mentioned, in this passage, he's presenting a problem, or at least an observation, that we are prone to perceptual illusions. And he uses this illusion of the shore moving and not the boat moving. I think probably a more familiar example of this for most people, certainly for me, would be if you're on a train, in a train station, and you're waiting for the train to leave the station. You're looking out the window into the next train car, and all of a sudden it seems like you're moving backwards. And you realize that the other train car is moving forwards. So this is a common perceptual illusion. It's based on the fact that when a large part of your visual field moves, you assume that it's you moving and not everything else. And it takes, it's a little confusing and disorienting because you don't really feel like you're moving. The other things that ought to go along with your moving just aren't happening. You can't sense backward movement, but you somehow perceive that must be the case because of, anyway. It's confusing, disorienting. And there are a number of perceptual illusions like this. And pilots have to train so that they don't become confused when such things happen. So Dogen makes a relationship between this perceptual illusion that we are familiar with and a cognitive delusion that we have a fixed permanent self. So he states that as the problem. We're prone to such illusions and delusions. And then he goes on with a resolution. But I'll continue this for just a moment, if I can make this work. There's another perceptual illusion is looking at something ambiguous and thinking that it's clearly one way or another. I'll illustrate that with this little short clip about whether the ballerina is spinning clockwise or anti-clockwise. Some of you may have seen this.
Clockwise or anti-clockwise? Well, I know I can make you see a spin anti-clockwise by clicking this button to reveal a video clip. And the silhouette will follow suit. Now if I hide this video clip and reveal this one, ballerina will change direction and start spinning clockwise. Now I know some of you will be thinking that this is just a trick, and when I reveal a video, the silhouette changes direction to follow that clip. To show you this isn't the case, I'm going to click here to reveal both video clips at the same time. If you focus on the ballerina on the right, you'll see the silhouette following suit and spinning clockwise too. But if you shift your attention to the ballerina on the left, you'll find that the silhouette changes direction and starts spinning anti-clockwise. If you like this illusion, we've got plenty more at our website, so why not pay us a visit at www.echalk.co.uk.
So there's an example of a perceptual illusion in which there is ambiguity built into the perception, and but one chooses one or another and fixates on it. And I think this sort of thing has parallels in a number of sort of psychological parallels. I mean, you could imagine the clockwise gang and the anti-clockwise gang battling in the streets over which way the ballerina was turning. So Dogen is telling us that, yes, we are susceptible to these kinds of perceptual illusions, and also the cognitive illusion that we are fixed and everything else is moving. And actually there's another parallel in the history of astronomy, of course. Ptolemy in the 2nd century AD concluded that the Earth was fixed and everything rotated around it, including the sun. And interestingly, about 4 or 5 centuries earlier, there was another astronomer, Aristarchus, who thought that the sun was the center and all the planets, they only knew about 5 planets because they could only see those with their naked eye. All the planets rotated around the sun, but Ptolemy made the case that the Earth was fixed and everything rotated around the Earth, a so-called geocentric theory for the solar system. And that theory actually seemed to support some biblical teachings that talked about the fixed firmament that was the Earth. So it kind of stuck, and even though there were problems with it, because if you consider everything rotating around the Earth, you have to come up with an explanation for why some of the planets go backwards sometimes. They have what's called retrograde motion. They seem to go backwards. But they came up with explanations for that, which were astrological. And so that geocentric model persisted for about 1400 years, until Copernicus made a strong case for the sun being the center of the solar system and the planets revolving around it. And Galileo, shortly thereafter, came up with additional evidence that this was in fact the case, which got him into a lot of trouble with the Vatican, and he ended up having to renounce his theory of a heliocentric solar system, and he was put under house arrest by the Vatican. And it's actually only been during our lifetimes when Pope John Paul II agreed with Galileo and said that the treatment that he received by the Vatican at that time was, as he said, imprudent. So the notion that we, the self, are the center of things has some similarity. I mean, in a way, it's understandable. Everywhere you go, there you are. So you always seem to be in the center of things. When we carry our sense organs around with us, so that perceptually, we're just always there, right in the center of things, and everything else is moving around us. But in fact, taking into the bigger picture, it's so very obvious that that each one of the 7.5 billion people on the planet cannot be the center of things. So there is a bigger picture. So Dogen continues on. Similarly, if you examine myriad things with a confused body and mind, you might suppose that your mind and nature are permanent. But when you practice intimately and return to where you are, I'm told that literally the Japanese characters for where you are would be more literally translated as inside this. When you return to inside this, it will be clear that nothing at all has unchanging self. Now, there are other translations of this passage, which I'll refer to. This one by Paul Jaffe. If a person, when he is riding along in a boat, looks around and sees the shore, he mistakenly thinks that the bank is moving. But if he looks directly at the boat, he discovers that it is the boat that is moving along. Likewise, with confused thoughts about body and mind holding to discrimination of the myriad dharmas, one mistakenly thinks that his own mind and nature are permanent. If intimately engaged in daily activities, inside this, one returns to right here. The principle that the myriad dharmas have no self is clear. And finally, a translation by Okamura of that final part of the passage. When we intimately practice and return right here, it is clear that all things have no fixed self. So what does this all mean, practically speaking? I guess what I understand this to mean is that It's easy for us to be disoriented and confused and become convinced that it's all about us, that we're the fixed thing, and everything else is out there, and maybe we think it's conspiring against us, or threatening us, or whatever, or that we have control over all of it. But we can develop a number of delusions along those lines. But Dogen is, I think, reminding us that if we really get into the swim of things and play our part in the greater scheme, that we can dispel those delusions and become part of the unfolding universe. Of course, now we know, we've learned some more about astronomy, and we know that even the sun, of course, is not fixed, and certainly everything is moving. That there's an expanding universe that's been going on for over 13 billion years, we think, and everything is in motion. Nothing has a fixed, permanent location. So, I guess Dogen is just encouraging us to join the dance, along the lines of what Sustama was talking about last week. And there's another passage from another of his writings that I'll just read, because it addresses this, I think, most directly, and it also refers to this metaphor of the boat and the shore. Dogen says in the writing Zenki, life is, for example, similar to a person riding in a boat. In the boat, I use the sails, and I am at the helm, and I pole the boat. Although I operate the boat is carrying me, and though there is no I other than the boat. I am on the boat, and I make the boat into a boat. We should inquire and study this very moment. At this very moment, there is nothing other than the world of the boat. The sky, the water, the coast, all become the time of the boat. This is not the same as the time of not riding in the boat. Therefore, I give birth to life. Life makes me into me. When we are riding in our boat, our body and mind, self and environment, are all essential parts of the boat. The whole great earth and the whole of empty space are essential parts of the boat. I as life, and life as I, are thus. So I guess one thing this brings to mind is, yes, we're prone to these perceptual illusions, we're prone to these cognitive delusions. And under what circumstances are we most vulnerable to this? Clearly, we can come in and out of that state of delusion, and we're all familiar with that. But can we learn how to recognize sort of hazardous situations? So I'm going to leave that as an open question. And I think we'll then break up into a smaller group